Hi Maeve, it's Miss Strother, and I'm here to give you the screencast of your final exam project essay draft. And I have already glanced through it and see that you have some great formatting going on your heading. I think typically I would prefer to see this say June 2, 2014, but that is not a requirement. You have a nice title. Kind of interesting. That'll be good. I do see that there's a couple times you use the word you, so you're not. So you got to be careful with those personal pronouns. You are not using contractions inappropriately. You are not necessarily doing your parenthetical in-text citations correctly, by which I mean, like, this one is fine. This is good. However, when you get to this one, the period gets shoved out to the end here. So there's actually no space in between the parenthetical in-text citation. So parenthetical meaning it's in parentheses, it's in the text of your essay, and you are citing the work that you are writing about. I also see that you are using a variety of sentence structures, that you have 5 pages. You've basically proofread, but there's just a couple minor errors, and you don't have a works cited list. So what I'm going to be able to do in the amount of time given in the screencast is go through your introduction, one body paragraph, and your conclusion. So I'll read the other ones. I'm just not going to talk through them in the screencast. So let's start up at the very beginning. Every author in some way portrays himself in his works, even if it be against his will, explained Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, a German writer born in 774. I love this quote. I love the way that you did this. I think I would ask you to put that in your conclusion. Most of the time you can put that kind of thing in an introduction. Most of the time you can begin an essay that way. But this one, you want to focus your analysis on those 3 pieces of literature, and taking the maybe attention away from it would not serve you best, at least not at this point in your writing career. Would be really cool though to put in your conclusion to say, see, all of these things that I said, they are true. Okay, so let's try putting that in. Taking that out and putting it down below. You want to now consider some options, some alternatives for your first sentence, but let's keep going. In every book, there is a little bit of the author to be found, either in the setting or the characters the author puts in. Literature gives us a full view into the culture or civilization of the author that created it. Cool. For example, Masks by Lucy Greeley is an autobiography about when she was a little girl who was searching for a culture to fit into, but never truly found. Okay, you want to put this comma on the inside of the quotation marks as well. Also, in The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, maybe you could say a teenage boy in post-war Barcelona, Spain, was searching to find out more about an author. You can leave it the way you had it. This flows a little bit better, but is also acceptable. Oh no, you only need 1 space in between. I know it used to be 2, so if your parents taught you to do that, as mine did, then we're not quite doing that anymore, so you can take those out. Also, okay, so you've already said also. So you probably don't want to say it again in the very next sentence. The Odyssey by Homer is maybe similarly about a man on a journey through many cultures and lands searching for his way home. Yeah. These books all have a couple of things in common. Who is they? They are all searching for something that they dedicate part of their life to. The characters in these stories are all searching for something and are wholly dedicated to it. Okay, I would consider how to word that so that it works for you. Another thing they have in common is that the authors of those books put a piece of themselves and their culture inside the book. If that is the main thing that you're trying to focus on, then I would just use that. Let's see, another thing they have in common. That's okay. Leave both. Leave both of these sentences. They are good. Literature gives a clear view into the civilization and culture it came from, as seen in Masks, The Shadow of the Wind, and The Odyssey. Very nice. Okay, it is clear the culture the author came from in Masks. Now, you must, in your topic sentences, include part of the argument. You really need to focus back to the argument, because otherwise your entire paragraph should only be about how clear it is that the author came from a particular culture. Now, she came from Ireland, but she's not just focused on Irish culture, at least not in the part that we read. So if you don't want your entire paragraph to be about how clear it is, then don't put that. Do something different. That's part of why I've made these very simple. Literature gives a clear view into the civilization it came and culture it came from, as seen in Masks. And just use that and be done. It's very simple. You can still play with things, but you've got to make sure that you are continuing to argue for your argument, for your thesis, instead of for something that came to you while you were writing. Okay, Lucy is constantly searching for which culture she fit into, and it is evident that in the point of view and wording, and it is evident in the choices she makes, in the point of view and wording she uses while writing. Very nice. She got a lot of attention, lots of calls from concerned relatives and friends, and I was both a little jealous of her and a little contemptuous because she was taking her accident a bit too seriously for my taste. After all, she'd lived, hadn't she? She'd had one operation, and they might do another one the next week, but after that it would all be over, so what was the fuss about? So, here's something I can show you. Because your quote here is longer than 4 lines, you want to go ahead and take all of this quote here and just push tab. So highlight it all and then put tab so that you're still within your paragraph, but you have it separated. In this, Lucy thinks that her roommate, a girl who had gotten her side and some of her organs split in half from being run over by an ice boat, I believe, was complaining too much. Okay. I think what you want to do is put this up on the top, because this is background information for this quotation. Lucy thinks, maybe to begin with, but how is that related to the point of view and wording she uses while writing? That part, and also how it shows the clear view into the civilization and culture it came from, needs to come right here. Right here. This is where your analysis comes in. Because Lucy is constantly in the hospital getting procedures herself, she thinks that anything that only needs one procedure and then is over is not a very big deal. You probably don't need that. Okay. This reflects her culture because she has a lot of love from her parents and siblings, but not a lot from outside sources like friends. Based on what you have been through in your own personal culture, you judge people without really knowing it. Interesting. That's true. That's very true. I think maybe you want to be more explicit. If you were to be a little more explicit in that area in your analysis, then it would be really clear what you meant. So yes, you judge people without really knowing it, but she is judging her friend based on her own experiences and the fact that she has a vast amount of also see that you probably intended this as sort of a lead up to the next quotation. And I think you want to make sure that you are doing double the analysis that you have here. So some of your analysis is still narrative, which is acceptable after a quotation. It helps everything kind of flow, but then you need to have more analysis. So just kind of consider the general rule that is there in your rubric, that your analysis should be at least twice the length of your evidence/quotation. So focus on that. Focus on adding in really, really explicitly connecting your quotations back to your thesis, back to your argument. All right, let's move on. How could they not feel the joy of walking down the street without the threat of being made fun of? This is during Halloween, when Lucy feels like she has finally found her culture and a place to fit in. Okay, so start here. Even Lucy found her own personal culture, and a place and a time for her to fit in. Halloween. She could wear masks and be completely free. And was astounded that others did not feel the same way. How could they not feel the joy? So maybe you could say, so I took this and kind of adjusted it and made this the context of your quote to come before it, so that it flows a little bit better into the quote. Otherwise, you start to feel like you're talking about one quote and you're analyzing one quote, and then you turn around and smack into the next one. So let's just be very careful about that. Okay, I am needing to move on to your conclusion just because of timing. Be careful that you don't use because too many times, and I really don't like it at the very beginning of a sentence. Again here. Okay, be careful. More analysis, less narrative. Okay. Conclusion. Literature gives a clear view into the civilization and culture it came from, as seen in Masks. You'll fix that. The Shadow of the Wind and the Odyssey. The culture that Masks comes from, so make sure you got spacing here, is evident in the story. So take these two sentences and combine them into one complex sentence. The culture and civilization the Shadow of the Wind comes from is evident in many different scenes in the book. For example, Daniel is offered a cigarette even when he is just 16 years old, which is illegal in America. That's a minor aspect of culture that shows where he's from. Try using an example that is a little more powerful, packs a punch, because your conclusion is the part where you are reminding everyone of those, or your readers, of that amazing thing that you said back there, so that they remember. Okay, the culture that the Odyssey came from is so different from today's modern culture that it's very easy to spot. Okay, so try not to use very easy. First of all, it's easy, but then also very just a little bit, you just want to move up to a higher level for that. To spot out is informal, and you could say spot would be formal enough, but you want to say to identify instead, for example. For example, in ancient Greece, unfortunately that's a lowercase a, they're very hospitable people. People are very hospitable to their guests, so Odysseus was treated well. Literature teaches us that you can see what culture or civilization the book comes from. Okay, careful, because that's not what you were trying to argue back in the very beginning. But otherwise, you're doing a beautiful job. Keep working hard. Do that analysis. You're great.